So we can start this off by getting your feelings on Holden, and we can certainly kind of go in some other directions as well. But you know what? It could be what you like about him, what you don't like. What does he seem like somebody that you would sit next to at lunch or in the study hall, or is he someone that you would go to the opposite end of the room with? Even if you don't like him, I think a question that I don't know if we'll get to it today, probably maybe tomorrow. Do you find him relatable? Because a lot of folks, especially older individuals, look at Holden as being like symbolic of teenage years and adolescent angst and all that kind of stuff. Does Ethan want to be identified with this guy? Does he want Holden to be the representative of his generation? Some of you might like that idea, some of you might not. But where do you want to start?
I really like Holden actually. Like I didn't think I was going to. Like I kind of feel bad for him in a sense because but like I appreciate that like even though he's like really depressed about a lot of different things in his life, he still tries to be like good in some extent. Like when he gives the nuns the extra money, or like when he's like really thinking about his sister and wants to get her a record because like, that's something he cares about. Like I can respect that.
So he and doesn't mean obviously all the time, but he does care for other people.
Yeah.
He has feelings towards other people. And he certainly, I don't know if saying he enjoys it, but he does it. I'll say he enjoys it. Annoying Ackley, but at the same time feels bad for him in a way. About brushing teeth and hygiene and all that kind of stuff. So he does care for other people, which is merit badge for him. Okay.
He's very cynical.
Too cynical?
He's just really sarcastic.
Well, I'd say cynical and sarcastic are two different things.
He's like kind of, what's the word, bitter? I don't know.
Okay, which is more, I'd say more in like that cynical kind of category. So, cynical / bitter toward, like, not that it's one thing. Would you say others, life?
Just, I have everything.
Okay.
He
Life.
always has an opinion.
Sure. And again, I think this is something where we want to keep in mind. We're reading everything that he's thinking, not just everything that he is saying. So, right now, a lot of you have a whole bunch of opinions that are spewing out in your head, whether it be about Holden, me, is someone else in this room, safety drills from homeroom, which aren't things that you're always necessarily going to verbalize. Katie?
I was going to say, I don't think he's a very good person, just because I feel like if the best thing you can say about him is that sometimes cares about other people, but maybe he's not the best.
Okay.
That's
All right, we'll just go not the best person. What would you consider then to be like his biggest fault? Which isn't an easy question, right off the spot, but
maybe it's like judgment on people.
okay, so being too judgmental of others. And you definitely would get a lot of support for that one. Emma, you good?
He puts on a very stolid appearance and seems like a very hard and cold person, but he's really sensitive, and you can see that when he's with Sunny at the hotel.
Okay. More sensitive than he would want to let on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he was in tears over everything that happened with Maurice and Sunny, and just off himself.
You're a big dirty moron. Boom, boom. You're still a moron. And then he pretends that he's going to shoot him. But he's still sensitive.
He has this whole conversation with himself about what happened.
Yep. So more sensitive than he wants to let on. And I think this would be, something that all throughout the book kind of ends up being an issue for him is going to be age, where in a lot of ways he wants to act older than he is, but a common criticism of him is that he's immature,
He described as like a 12-year-old in the beginning of the book.
Yeah, but I'm tall. I have a lot of gray hairs. I can go order a cocktail for us, if you want. The smoking aspect, not to like, hey, smoking's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. I would say, so far as that's probably not him trying to act super old, because he certainly would not be the only 16, 17-year-old at Pensy or any place else that's going to start smoking cigarettes, just because of how commonly accepted it is in the 40s and 50s. A pregnant woman smoking a cigarette would be no big deal whatsoever, 1940s, 1950s. So it still could be him trying to act older, but I wouldn't be quite as critical of him for that behavior the way that we probably would be today. But certainly there does kind of seem to be a little bit of an age conflict, of him trying to act like he's 26, 27, 37 instead of 16, 17.
I think he's like a really misunderstood person, just because I feel like what like you already read, I think he really does want to be a good person. It's just like I think his way of being a good person is like trying to make people realize how stupid they are, so they can like help themselves.
Johnny, I'm only trying to help you by calling you a phony. So so to kind of go back with this one, Alex, he is misunderstood, and so when he is so phony is going to be a word that drives people nuts after a while. More often as it comes to it seems to get applied in a whole bunch of different situations. And again, difficult question to answer right off the cuff. Do you think when he's going to call someone a phony, he wants to kind of change them and make them see things differently, or from his view, a better perspective? Or is that being more critical? The phonies, you're not going to help a phony, but let me help these other people.
I feel like if they call someone a phony, it's just like that's just kind of his word. Like sometimes people like just call people dumb because that's just like the first word.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think he's like being like truly critical of them. I just think he
That's the initial reaction.
yeah, he like thinks that he's like not a phony, so everyone else like around him is.
And Brighton Heights will say jag off. He's going to say phony. Basically, it'll be the same thing. Okay.
I feel like as a narrator, he's super unreliable. Because like at the start, he's in a mental hospital. After like chapter 3, when he's talking to Mr. Spencer, he's like, "I'm such a great liar." And later on, I can't remember where he's talking about how much he can drink and how he had to force himself to vomit. And I don't know. I feel like he lies a lot in his narration.
Oops. Writing Mr. Morrow instead of Mr. Morrow. Now I'm all messed up. No, he'll talk. I'm a terrific liar, and then laying it on really thick. When he's talking with Mrs. Morrow on the train, he keeps going back to it, and I was really starting to pull her in with this one and this story and all that kind of stuff that's taking place. And it seems that he enjoys kind of lying to a degree, but you're right, as a narrator, that does kind of call into question what are the events that are happening. Now, since it's stream of consciousness, I kind of give him the benefit of the doubt that he's not going to purposely try to lie to us as the reader. But, if you are a person who tends to exaggerate and go into hyperbole, I do think your remembrance of the truth can definitely be skewed. So going back to your point about reliability, maybe not purposely trying to deceive us, but you do kind of start to wonder, okay, what are some parts here that are maybe being fabricated or exaggerated beyond what we normally would expect. And Ethan brought up an important point that I think a lot of people forget about, because it does happen on the first page. Where is he when this all begins? And you said he's in some kind of mental facility. And so who therefore does this conversation kind of end up going with? Doctor so-and-so mentions about, being psychoanalyzed and all that kind of stuff. If you really want to hear about it, opening lines of the book, the first thing you'll probably want to know is where I was born and what my lousy childhood was like and how my parents were occupied and all before they had me and all that David Copperfield kind of crap. But I don't feel like going into it if you want to know the truth. In the first place, that stuff bores me. In the second place, my parents would have about 2 hemorrhages apiece if I told anything pretty personal about them. They're quite touchy about anything like that, especially my father. They're nice and all, I'm not saying that, but they're also touchy as hell. Besides, I'm not going to tell you my whole GD autobiography or anything. I'll just tell you about this madman stuff that happened to me around last Christmas, just before I got pretty run down and had to come out here to take it easy. That's all I told DB about, and he's my brother and all. He's in Hollywood. That isn't too far from this crummy place, and he comes over and visits me practically every week. So, stories taking place where? So far as the narration is primarily in New York, at least East Coast, Pennsylvania, train going to New Jersey and New York. but his physical location is going to be someplace, we get the sense, out west, closer to Poplar. So Holden in New York is 16-year-old. Holden telling a story, narrator Holden is 17-year-old, basically rehashing whatever caused all this stuff to happen. So in some ways, you know, when he says all this madman stuff, you're probably witnessing the spiral that caused him to kind of go somewhat, quote unquote, out of control and had to bring him here.
I feel like in a way he might be scared to grow up because like he was talking to Mr. Spencer and Mr. Spencer was like, you need to have your life figured out, and he's like, oh, like I don't care, like I'll figure it out eventually. He just has like a really cynical view of like all the adults in his life. The only time he's not like that is when he thinks about like his brothers and his sister, or like when he's at the children's museum and at the playground. Like he just seems here there.
Holden is a person who I think could be described as having a Peter Pan complex. Want to stay young forever. And so, you know, it was not that Alex, shame on you for not saying adults, but when I was asking Alex about phonies and whatnot, pretty much anyone who he calls a phony tends to be an adult. The people that he tends to care for the most, I would say more often than not, do end up being younger people. And that's something to kind of keep an eye on as moving forward. And, you know, like, Sarah, I think you mentioned Sonny, or someone who was talking about him being, you were saying about him being sensitive with Sonny. You know, Sonny is certainly in an older situation, but he's looking at her as being a younger person and tries to have conversation. And so looking at her in a different light than what someone else who would be going through Maurice for a rendezvous most likely would.
I think that like with his judgmental attitude, he like has a really superior attitude, if that makes sense. Like he really likes to criticize other people, but he doesn't really like to criticize himself.
And a lot of folks, because you were mentioning the cynical and bitter, right? Hypocritical is a term that a lot of folks will also throw out there, where, you know, complaining about actions that people do, but then he'll go through and do the same thing. You know, I can't stand the movies. We're going to go see a movie. You know, the idea that, okay, I do care for other people, and adults are a bunch of phonies. I care for younger people. Adults are a bunch of phonies. I'm going to smoke my cigarette and go try to get that rum and Coke right now. How dare you not serve me? Can't you see I'm an adult? So there are a lot of his actions that I think the main, not the main, but a prominent criticism of his is that he is hypocritical. Which, I mean, no offense, it's probably true of everyone in this room, me included. You know, of being hypocritical at times. Is his over the top? I think some folks, some readers would probably take it that way. Virginia, and then Shay, I'll come over to you.
Kind of on the unreliable narrator.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of hard to trust everything he says because he passes so much judgment on people that you're like, can everyone he meets really be this stupid as he describes them? And it seems like he describes everyone as being so stupid. You're like, why is everyone he meets like this?
I don't know if we're going to read the book or not. As I lay dying, I mentioned, you know, as a possible read. Doesn't matter if we do, if we don't. I'm not really giving it away. The characteristic of As I Lay Dying that resonates, not resonates, but that you know, stays with most people is the fact that there are 15 narrators in the book. Not this one, we only have one, but there's 15 in As They Lay Dying. They're all narrating the same thing. So it's not like there's 15 different stories going on, but it's 15 different perspectives of the same event, which is a neat artistic thing to do because, you know, if say there's a big fight that breaks out, so Cut is just going crazy on Libby. Word of this is going to travel. Hannah's viewpoint, Julia's viewpoint, Johnny's viewpoint, Alex's viewpoint, Shay's viewpoint, Nina's viewpoint. There's going to certainly be a lot of similarities, but there could be some differences as well. Who initiated it, who started it, who was most responsible for it, and stuff like that. With Holden, you don't have that because it's solely just his perspective. So, you know, it'd be neat to, as like a creative writing assignment. We're not going to do this. Take a chapter, take the nun chapter, write it from the perspective of the nuns, and what are they going to say about, you know, about this guy, or Sonny, or Maurice, or Mr. Spencer? Mr. Spencer would be a good one because you would definitely be getting probably a different perspective of Holden than what that he himself would say. but you don't really know what is that objective viewpoint because his is definitely very subjective. And yeah, I think that's where the unreliability part comes in that Ethan brought up. Not that these things did not happen, but how do they really unfold? Are you being mistreated, or being put down? Is this person really a phony the way that Holden would make it sound?
I was gonna say, I think that Holden kind of like purposely like puts effort into being like individual and different, because he's always like everyone's a phony, like they're all like the same, they're all fake, and then I think that he thinks that like, yeah, and then I think that he thinks that he's like kind of like Izzy said, like a bit of a superiority complex, like he kind of thinks that he's more of a real person than other people, and I think that he tries to kind of emphasize that by being.
So Holden thinks, I don't want to make, not like he is the one true individual, but but Holden thinks he's not part of like the mass group the way that everyone else is. So he's not a phony. So Holden thinks that he is still, we'll just say an individual. With that being unlike everyone else. And really, who are his favorite people in the world? Specifically, who are his? Okay. Allie talks about Phoebe. What about DB?
It's conflicting.
DB's a conflict, and and like Mrs. Trainer was saying, he's not a prostitute, which he's not. But what's he doing in Hollywood? Selling his talent to do something that he doesn't really care about. He's doing the screenwriting as opposed to he's a really good short story writer, but he's not using that as much. And Virginia, you might have said Jane. So DB maybe, but certainly if you take a look at these, what is a common trait for them? They're all children, and even though Jane's his age, what Jane is he thinking about in his mind? Checker Jane, not Jane who's going on a date with Warren Jane. So we'll kind of start there tomorrow. So right now, the only homework assignment is your reading, but you do have to do next Wednesday. So you got some time to kind of spread that stuff around.
I would remember the weird stuff.